My name is Keenan Mabin. I was born in Atlantic City. I am a graduate of Oak Crest High School. And then back in Atlantic City is also where I kind of learned how to be an A&R. But one of the big things is, what is an A&R, especially growing up when I was in Atlantic City. So it wasn't until really that I went to Philadelphia and worked with the people there that I really kind of figured out what an A&R was. And yeah, but it's also important, I think, to recognize it was in Philadelphia that I really got involved in the nonprofit work. As an engineer, started to learn what an A&R meant, and just working with kids, working with artists, working with Charles, realized that I was really just doing diversity and inclusion work. But it's also important to recognize that, while there's people like Charles that go on to get nominated for Grammys, and myself, there's a lot of other kids that music for them is the only way out. And it's just important I think, to give back and have events like this. So I'm happy to help tell more of my cousin's story and inspire the next generation of kids and youth from back home and really all over the world.
Thank you, Keenan. So I'm going to jump in now, and I'm sorry I was still letting our people come in. But hi, my name is Christina Noble. I am the project manager for Stories of AC. We have our project coordinator with us tonight as well, Toby Rosenthal. Some of you may know her as some of our students. We also have some of our AC interns, as well as Marissa Luca, who's also a multimedia content producer for our project. For those of you who don't know what Stories of Atlantic City is, we are a collaborative project focused on telling restorative, untold stories about the city and its people. So I'm sure you can imagine with the name Stories of AC, you know that we are in the business of storytelling. We have a really cool perspective when it comes to news and storytelling. Not only do we focus on news, but we also focus on the art of storytelling. So we love to have workshops like these to inform our communities on new and artistic ways that they can also share their stories, not just through the news outlet. So I'm going to go ahead and pass back to Keenan. I know you're in good hands. Welcome once again, everyone. I do want to shout out a few folks. I know we have some comm students in the room. We have some Stockton folk in the room. Our House of Expressions people are here. I know we have some Boys and Girls Club members here. Thank you, Nate, for making that connect. Am I missing anyone? Do we have anyone from our Woodrow Wilson High School? There we go on the line. AC Mike, a few other wonderful characters in here. So I'm excited to hear what you all have to contribute. And thank you once again for being here.
Well, yeah, thank you, Christina. So yeah, as I kind of mentioned, I kind of learned to be an A&R in Atlantic City. It's a little bit different time back then. The Rainbow and G-Force on Atlantic Avenue kind of really started my love of music, inspired by one of my good friends, Mike Farley. And it got me into music really on the underground scene and taught me how to be an A&R. And I think me and Charles had talked, and I think this is perfect time for you, cuz talk about some of your influences and kind of what got you started, and and really feeling like, even though growing up from South Jersey, that you could make music, and what inspired you.
Well, let me introduce myself formally to everybody in the chat. I am Sir Charles McAllister from Galloway, New Jersey. My grandfather, Melvin Gregory, actually worked in the admissions office for Stockton for quite some time. So that's how I became familiar with the university. Went to the day camps and the basketball camps, and I did a small tenure there as well, going there for about 2 semesters too. So.
Okay.
Yeah, but honestly, but growing up, my musical influences really came from the household. Growing up in a 7-day Adventist household, I heard a lot of like Take 6 and Kenny G and the Winans, and so really I got introduced through music, through gospel, and then kind of trickled down to like R&B music and hip hop music, like the Biggies and Michael Jackson and Tupac. So that's kind of like LL Cool J. That was kind of like my real like early influences. And then as I got older, I always had a love for it. Then while I was actually in college attending Stockton, I got a few opportunities to really branch out and just you know, try to put my best foot forward. So instead of finishing school, I capitalized on those opportunities, and now I'm here today.
And it's funny that you mentioned the hip hop stuff, and we weren't big R&B guys necessarily, but now, I mean, I listen to a lot of R&B. You know, a lot of you branched out, and a lot of your songwriting is R&B. But I think going back, what, you know, I look back at kind of what we were doing and where we came from, you know, I kind of think like, you know, we had this idea that, you know, anything was possible, you know, and where do you think, you know, for you, that feeling of like you can be really successful, like you talked about, and kind of when we started working together around the time of when you were at Stockton and doing these things. But for you, what was it really that inspired you to think that, you know, based on what we grew up listening and where we grew up from, that, you know, that these type of things were really possible?
Well, really just being young and just seeing Rodney Jerkins in the area. Honestly, I know he was in Galloway and like the Pleasantville, Atlantic City area, and just like being around town, maybe going to the mall or something on the bus, like the 508 bus route, and just like maybe seeing him in like a Bentley at the light or something like that. So that just really motivated me. And the fact that he brought like stars like Brandy and Michael Jackson to the Pleasantville area in South Jersey just really gave me the confidence, like, hey, maybe one day that can be me. Maybe one day I can figure that out. But I just didn't know the proper steps to take in order to doing that. So it definitely was a process to get to this point. Not even gonna lie to you, but really it's all about having the confidence in yourself and knowing that you can accomplish anything you put your mind to as long as you're true to yourself and you keep good people around you, keep your energy good, and also like you do right by people. Because one thing people fail to realize in this industry is very small. It might seem big if you're on the outside looking in, but it's very small. It's very relationship based. So it's all about developing a good rapport and doing quality work, and kind of the work will speak for itself at that point.
You said something that's funny now about it being a process, but I know early on, you know, there was a real feeling like, oh, this needs to happen right away, you know, and we would always have conversations about it being a process. I was looking back at some of the pictures when you and Reggie and I and Prince Charles, and coincidentally, and all those, when we did the stuff down in Atlanta, that was like 2016. We did the stuff when we were recording, when we were there in New York with Brandy, that was 2018. You started in a group, and talk a little bit about kind of the process that you went through, kind of the transformation as an artist, kind of learning the business, learning the ropes, to the point where you're able to be the artist that you are now. That I always, you know, saw you envisioned that you had that skill, but learning those other intangibles and figuring out those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So before actually leaving New Jersey, I was in a group with some guys known as, we called ourselves the Jet Setters. It was it was a group of 2 producers and 2 artists. Myself, Sir Charles, and Mr. Benjamin was an artist from Indiana, and John Oliver, who was also a resident of Galloway and went through the Galloway school system, South Jersey, who currently resides in LA. He was the main producer of the group, an engineer, heck of a guy. It's my brother, and Kyrie Hankins, and he was a producer as well. Very, very smart guy. He played basketball at Holy Family University, and while we were in school, we just had a love for it and just tried to figure it out. So they started making beats, recorded a couple mixtapes, ended up in like Double XL, a few things early on. So that was kind of like a big spark for us. And then we got an opportunity to actually move to Richmond, Indiana. And we got an investment to build a recording studio and a media development company in 2014, I believe. And that's kind of where everything started to kick off. And then once I moved, so I did about 1.5 years out there, and then I came back to New Jersey. And then I ended up linking up with a producer from the area named Daryl Camper, who's very accomplished. I know he's been signed since he was like 16, so he's been doing this thing for a mighty long time. So he gave me an opportunity to kind of join forces with him, and I got to learn the ropes, and I got to develop my skill and relationships and things of that nature. So that's kind of how everything transpired.
And you kind of went, well, I guess the other thing is, you know, like we're not terribly much older than you guys. So Christina, as we talk, you know, as questions come in and within the flow of conversation, just, you know, jump in and let people know if there's something they want to say in the chat or a question they want to ask. feel free to ask. I mean, we want to keep this as interactive as possible. We don't want to just be lecturing. But you, but you know, you kind of, you know, went from the group, but also, you know, you were an artist. You know, the talent was there, but you also kind of started pivoting. I know we've talked about kind of, you know, when you're a younger artist, you feel like you have to fit a certain mold. But as you started to grow and get more into songwriting, you know, you were able to explore some of those other parts of yourself, get into more of the R&B and things like that. Talk about, you know, that process. I think that was also a big development process for you as well, where it was fun to watch, see you go from this artist to this songwriter, and always having those skills, but being able to, you know, go and do any type of song. You know, we played the Brandy, we played the Ayana. I think at one point we were trying to get a Wiz Khalifa feature, but you know, it's funny now that it came back around the other way. And so talk to about that process of going from just being an artist to a songwriter.
Yeah, so I mean, I know for a lot of people who want to pursue a career in music, I know they all start out as either an artist or a producer. So really with me, like just rapping and singing and stuff, I was always great with channeling my emotions through some type of expression. So through, I guess, writing and recording and things like that, getting my feelings out there, you know. And then honestly, once I got the opportunity to actually be in the studio with actual artists and like big time producers, it's all about just like curating a vibe. Because honestly, all artists are their own individuals, so their process is different. The way they think is different. The way they interpolate things are different. So it's kind of being able to be a vessel to giving them something that they necessarily aren't accustomed to. So just like with my lyricism and in a way to just channel certain energy, I was able to get in certain rooms that I guess maybe the average person wouldn't be able to get into per se. But like I said earlier, that's all through relationships. But yeah, but not to get off track, but yeah, but being an artist is just like, it's a form of expression, you know? So, but once I realized from being around certain individuals in LA and traveling and things like that, it's a business. So some of the most talented artists in the world, but you gotta figure out a way to make money, honestly, if you really want to pursue this thing. So I kind of just transitioned into that mode and just learning the business, and things kind of just took themselves from there. But one thing I will say, as an artist, you always got to be persistent. You always got to be confident, because people can read your energy. So it's just like you always got to just remain vibrant, but also remain yourself, because people appreciate the fact that someone else's own uniqueness that inspires them to do what they do. So my best advice to artists out there up and coming or trying to pursue a career in music is just always be yourself, but you have to know that this is a business and you have to know where the sound of music is going. So definitely do your history, all the way from Berry Gordy to Michael Jackson to the current artist now to a Kendrick or a J. Cole or a Drake. You got to know the times of music and what's trendy and what's going to be catchy to the ear and things of that nature. So it's all about being a student of the game, honestly. I know for all the college kids and high school kids out here, I know you're a student in the classroom, but if you really want to pursue something in life, you really got to take that time to develop your craft and really put your best foot forward. And they say you can't call yourself a professional until you put in 10,000 hours of work. So let's just keep that in mind. So once you get to that 10,000 hour mark, you should either find some type of breakthrough or some type of progress that give you the validation of what you want to pursue and why you should pursue it. So.
Let's kind of, oh, Christine, you're going to say something?
No, I was just going to segue in there because now that we're starting to talk more about the business side, I'm sure everyone's here because they're interested either in art or music or the music industry. And typically, when people think of the music industry, they think of the stars that they see, the faces that they have to see on the screen. However, we know, and having you here is proof today, that there are other ways to seg your way into the music industry. So could you just tell us a few entry points? Like, I know personally, I'm not a singer. I may have broken a few eardrums in my day. I'm a dancer, but typically when I think music industry, you know, I think singer. So for example, me as a dancer, I'm sure that's another way that I can get into the music industry. But what are some of the other ways that people can enter that realm?
Honestly, just like maybe like attending conferences. If you know someone that knows somebody, just being persistent and following up. Because honestly, it's not really a real blueprint and to get into the industry per se, and especially through experience. It's all about just relationships, honestly, at this point. So it's kind of just, if you know anybody who's involved in the industry, maybe picking their brain and seeing how you can get involved and be an asset instead of and not really a liability. Don't ask for too much. Just ask for enough to where you don't rub people the wrong way, and just really got to know how to work a room, honestly. But I would say through social media is definitely one of the ways to really infiltrate the industry. I mean, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. But honestly, it's just like those executives and artists, they get thousands of people spamming them and DMing them every day. So you kind of just got to just like find a way to kind of stick out and take maybe an unorthodox approach instead of trying to get in contact with someone or things of that nature. But I would say, like for us, I mean, we started in the Philadelphia area working out of like Sigma Sounds while I was open, and transitioning to Larry Gold's, just known as Milk Boy now. So I would say if you're really serious about your craft, research some of the big studios in maybe like a major city like in New York, or LA, or Miami, things like that, and book some time, and then put some work in. Build with an engineer. There's always executives and creatives that are always in these big studios. So it's kind of just introducing yourself, making your presence known, and just putting your best forward and letting people know what you do. And if they hear the music and if they feel like it's good or something can transpire from that, then they'll be the ones getting in contact with you at the end of the day.
Yeah, and also then from a marketing A&R perspective, I mean, there's any number of careers. I mean, I think we got Dilemma on, we have Drew on, producer, artist, engineer, songwriter, and I think, like my cousin said, a bunch of great things. And social media is always a great tool, as some of the interns were talking about. We were talking yesterday. Telling your story, I think, is also, like, I always try to, like, obviously I know my cousin very well, so I always know a lot about him. I can pull things out of him. It's all about telling your story and figuring out what makes you unique. And just, looking at those big studios, looking at who's doing what, but also building like they were a pretty established group by the time I even started working with them, even the time I started working with Charles. So it's that whole 10,000 hours time. And even just really in terms of diversity and inclusion and artistry, it's really just about telling your story. So as a dancer, even for you, Christina, linking with other dancers, other artists, creating maybe your own story, your own short film, different things like that to tell your story. But it's really synonymous to art and music and however you create it and however you utilize that platform. But it's all about telling your story, really what it comes down to.
Thank you. So it sounds like a major part of the industry is networking. I know we talk about networking a lot. I'm sure Toby, as a professor, talks about networking. I went to Howard University, and they're like the school of networking. That's all they talk about. I know that's an important thing. And just knowing, like you said, Sir Charles, knowing who's in the room, or like the youth like to say, read the room, right? Know who's around you. So thank you for that perspective. I also wanted you to talk a little bit more so about the careers that people can pursue in the industry as well. That may be lucrative. People typically think the major singers are the richest ones, even though, of course, real artists do it for the passion. But we also want to know how we can put food on the table. So what are some other venues that we can use to get into that music industry, like different career paths?
You want to take that, Gus?
Yeah, I got it. So I would say the biggest and also the easiest one that's overlooked by a lot of people is audio engineering. And so as an audio engineer, you're booked in the room with the talent, and you get to work with them hands-on. And also you get to hear how they develop certain sounds, how certain singers or rappers or artists, just how they work. And that's one job that will forever be in high demand, because every studio or artist needs a good engineer. So I would say anybody interested in pursuing music or production, definitely tap into the engineering realm. And there's plenty of schools and programs where you can do like a 6-month course and you can get a certificate. And then once you have that certificate, you can apply to certain studios like in Atlanta or LA or New York and inquire about getting a job. But I would say that, to me, is the easiest way to actually get in the door to these big studios and get around these big artists.
Thank you. So have some, oh, I'm sorry, Keenan.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say we have some questions rolling in, but if you'd like to talk first.
No, go ahead.
All right.
Let's take some questions. Let's go.
Malika Stafford.
Yes. So my question for you is, how should we as artists or musicians like market ourselves to people that we want to work with? Like, you only have a certain amount of time to sell yourself. So what should we say in that short amount of time when we're talking to people that we want to work with?
Obviously, I would say being transparent. So it's like, if you're a singer, then if somebody's clicking on your page or checking out your YouTube, they need to know, okay, this is what she does. So it's like being transparent and making it easy on the eyes and ears. Because honestly, like, a lot of execs and people in the industry, like, everybody has a short attention span nowadays. So it's just like, whatever your focus is, or whatever point you're trying to get across, is trying to get it across. Keep it short and sweet, you know, because people don't really want to hear your story until they realize how talented you truly are. Then that's when they want to work with you and kind of pick your brain a little more. So I would say just being very forward with your content and making sure all your content is neat, looks professional. You know, quality is a big thing, because literally you can have a cover or a song that's up on the internet or your Instagram, and as long as that quality's there and the talent matches with that, people will flock to you. And that's the one thing about social media now. It's a gift and a curse, but at the end of the day, if you're talented and you know how to work your hashtags and things like that, I mean, you can definitely get a push. I'm not saying it's easy, because there's millions of people doing it, but my best advice to that question would just be making sure that whatever content you're pushing, or how you're trying to how you're trying to portray yourself, whether you're a singer, artist, piano player, dancer, anything within the entertainment realm, just make sure that it's very visible to the eyes, because people want to click on it and see what's going on, then they're on to the next thing. So it's all about that. And also, while you have someone's attention, just blowing them away, taking advantage of opportunities, man. Because a lot of people think you can just sit behind a computer or behind your phone and just repost a bunch of things to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and think that it's really going to give you a push. But honestly, I would say taking that leap of faith and, like I said, going to the big studios, going to the music conferences, going to certain events, going to performances, and really just networking. Because everybody has Instagram, and everybody scrolls every day on the timeline, but that doesn't mean everybody's really paying attention. So it's like, just because somebody likes your post doesn't mean they really support you, because you can have a link where you got to purchase this song or this album, and they might not click on that, but they might just like your picture and keep it moving. So I would say just be very precise on whatever you're trying to give out to the world, and make it easy for people to contact you or just look you up and research you, things of that nature. I hope that answers your question. If not, you can ask me again, and I can try to specifically like give you like the root answer to your question, if that didn't help.
You got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I see we have some more questions, but before I jump into our next question, just piggybacking off what Malika said, and I mentioned something in the chat about the elevator pitch. For those who don't know what the elevator pitch is, it's just like a 2 to 3 minute spiel about yourself, that if you were to run into someone famous or successful in an elevator, and you had to tell a little bit about yourself, that would be your pitch. So if we were to run into somebody that was famous in an elevator or in passing somewhere, what do you suggest would be the best thing to do? Like, is it carrying a business card? Is it jumping into a quick song if you're a singer? Is it busting out an 8 count if you're a dancer? What is going to be the most well received by that person, that famed person? What do you suggest?
Oh, so I just saw a question as well too, that a good friend of mine and colleague, Dilemma, awesome producer, vocal arranger, artist, everything, is extremely talented guy. But he just said, do your research before you reach out. So you know that if you run into a certain individual, kind of their history and what they stem from, so you can kind of like relate to their story or what they're accustomed to, and make the conversation a little more friendly. Because, you know, it's kind of like nowadays a lot of people are kind of standoffish in a sense. That's kind of the generation we're in now. So you got to kind of make people feel comfortable, you know, like, oh man, well, you're doing this. Yeah, when I was 18, I was playing the piano at church and being a musician at church, and I got opportunity to do X, Y, and Z. So it's all about just knowing the people you're dealing with and targeting like the people you're dealing with as well, or who you want to deal with or reach out to. But a lot of this, honestly, is like being at the right place at the right time and taking advantage of opportunity. Because you only get one chance to really introduce yourself. So it's like you want to do that to the best of your ability and just be relatable. I mean, this industry is all about relatability, and people can not only like your music or your concept, but actually get along with you as a person. Like, be a decent human being at the end of the day, because everybody's grinding, everybody's trying to get to that next level. But you gotta have the personality, the tenacity, and you really just got to be vibrant, because people read energy. So it's like if you come across good and obviously you're talking something that somebody wants to hear, I feel like they'll be more open and receptive to receiving what you have to say.
Thank you for that. I'm going to toss our next question to Brianna Fiorentino. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you did. But I didn't have one at the moment.
Oh, okay. No, you're fine. I see, is that Ben Sides that had a question? Is Ben still on the call?
Oh no, I didn't have one either.
Okay.
I think they
Is
were
it,
saying they want to.
Right, the dots were indicating who's thinking about maybe pursuing music. And
sorry, I read that.
so right, so we were getting a gauge of who, like where folks are, as especially the students too. So that's why they put dots in the chat.
Got it. Sorry, students, I misunderstood it.
But it's good. It's good. They like to be on their toes a little bit. But so even though if you didn't have a question yet, you still have a chance. So feel free to send it in the chat too.
Right. So while we're waiting on some more questions to come into the chat, could you talk us a little bit through your storytelling or your songwriting process? I'm sure a lot of people joined the call today because they want to have a little insight into where you draw your inspiration from, what your process looks like, and how you really get into the mode when you're in your songwriter, wearing your songwriter hat. So could you just tell us a little bit about that process?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So for me, everybody's process is different, obviously. People don't work the same. Everybody's their own individual. But for me, it starts with the production. So, well, honestly, it's either production, or if I have an idea in my head, I kind of just formulate it and then I find the music to match that idea. But I would say it starts with the production, how it makes you feel, what you're feeling when it comes to the process. And also, like, when it comes to like writing hooks and things of that nature, it's all about that. That top line is very important. So it's like, I know a lot of people focus on lyrical and being real lyrical, which is great. Nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to the writing process and getting people's attention when they first hear that song come on, it's all about melodies for me. So you get that melody right, that goes along with the production, and then how I work is we start with the production, and then we get some melodies going, and then once we comp the melodies, what that means structure. So we break down the melodies. Okay, this sounds great for a hook. This be dope for a pre-hook. This be good for a verse, and then I comp the melodies, and then I put the words to it, so however we're feeling. But honestly, when it comes to songwriting, it's all about what individual you're working with as well, because you might be feeling happy, but everybody just broke up with their boyfriend or girlfriend, and they need to get those emotions out. So it's kind of being able to read an artist or producer to kind of curate that vibe that they want. Because as a creative, you might have a million ideas in your head, but that doesn't mean that all those ideas will fit that current situation or that person or what they're trying to portray through their music. But I would say, to get back to the question, yeah, definitely melody first for me. And for a lot of creatives I work with, it's all about getting the melody right without the words. Because if you can hum a song or remember a riff, then it's like, okay, if that's stuck in your head, then once you put the words to it, it's kind of like the icing on the cake. So, and a lot of people still to this day, there's classic songs that people might forget the words, but they still hum that melody. So it's like melody is extremely important. That's the first thing people hear and what they're attracted to besides the production.
Thank you. Keenan, I know we have one more question, so I'm going to pass it to Malika, and then I'll toss it back to you.
Hi, so when you were talking about your songwriting process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything that's off limits for you? Do you find yourself like writing a specific way, in a way that you feel like is more comfortable for you? Or do you try to think outside of the box when you approach writing a song?
Honestly, it's all about who I'm writing the song for. Like, whether it's for like a Christmas compilation album or like a album cut for somebody. So usually for me, how it works for me is people come to me and they say, hey, I need this type of vibe. I want to talk about this. This is how I'm feeling. Can you help bring this out of me? Can you help spark some ideas for me? Things of that nature. So there's no limits to my process, but I kind of keep it simple, honestly. I dig deep to what the task is at hand, what kind of song I'm writing, who's it for, first and foremost. And then I kind of just take that approach. But yeah, I always just listen to the beat and just see where it takes me and try to just create a vibe on my own that I know will benefit whoever I'm working with at the time, and then take it from there. But like I said earlier, artists are very sensitive. So you kind of gotta tiptoe on the line of what you feel like they would want to hear, or how they want to sound, and things of that nature. So like I said, it's different for everybody, but my process is pretty much the same, honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I do see a few more questions in the chat, Keenan. Did you want to jump in before I?
Yeah, no, go
Okay.
ahead.
So Professor Rosenthal asks, how does what's going on in the world, 2020, because we all know 2020 has been a year, how does that influence your career trajectories?
Ooh. Wow, that's an interesting question. So honestly, like with politics and everything going on right now, it's just like it's a very sensitive time right now for everyone, like literally for everyone. So I kind of attach myself to things I know will kind of have an impact on music, if that makes any sense to you guys. Not just doing, like a whole bunch of trap records and talking about the streets and stuff, but just kind of like attaching myself to things that make people like feel good, that inspire people. And through working with Brandy and like the Brandy Daniel Caesar record, Love Again, that was kind of a vibe that right now, currently in the R&B world, wasn't really jumping off at the time. So it's kind of like just we created a moment to make people want to fall in love, to not be scared to jump off the edge or tell that certain person how you feel, and it translated into a Grammy nomination. I mean, so I'm very grateful for that. But honestly, what's going on in the world doesn't really affect my work per se. But if I'm in with a certain artist or working with a label and they have an idea of, okay, we kind of want to talk about how it is in the struggle, but how you can come out of that, or we want to just uplift the people through these trying times, things like that. So, it's really all about what's at hand. But I mean, from how I started my career and where I'm at now, I would definitely say I hope to move on and work with big or just as big artists as an icon like Brandy or like a Daniel Caesar, and just help them tell their story or get their feelings out about what's going on in the world, honestly. But for me individually, it's kind of just knowing what to surround yourself with, and how you want to be portrayed, because perception is everything. So maybe I might not take might not take a session with a hardcore rap artist right now, because maybe that's just not how I'm feeling. I might want to help somebody sing a song about healing or love, or things like that nature that will translate to people through these trying times. So I feel like everybody needs a little motivation, even myself, because I mean it's hard out here for a lot of people, man. So you kind of just it kind of just all goes by the task at hand, honestly. But for my career trajectory, I really see myself just moving on to a lot of the bigger and better artists, helping them tell their story and portray a vibe musically that they haven't tapped into yet.
Thank you. We have another question from Eugene Mack. Can you explain the value of a mentor or sponsor in your work? How does one go about getting a mentor?
Okay. So honestly, that just goes through bumps and bruises, man. Just putting yourself out there, knowing certain people to rub shoulders with, and be a part of their process. Obviously, as an independent artist coming up, you kind of want to attach yourself to something that can help bring you some type of leverage or some type of insight on how things go. But so like if you don't have anybody really close to you that you can just call on the phone and ask about like music things, I would say working out of like a recording studio, somebody who's been in the industry, or somebody who's around it all the time, to give you some type of insight. And when mentors come into play, it's very important to have a mentor, but at the same time, I know that person has to be confident enough within you to take that role into your life. So I would say It says, be true, be serious about your craft. Show your hard work and dedication. And I feel like the right mentor will pop into your circle. But in order to establish a mentor, you have to be in certain places or surround yourself around certain people that can help you along your journey, honestly. But I mean, Instagram's a great way to DM people. I know a lot of people might not answer their DMs and stuff like that, but it's all about whatever area you're from or wherever you are. It's kind of just finding those people where you can reach out to and just establish a relationship. Like I said earlier, everything is relationship based. So if you're putting in the hard work and things like that, then I feel like those type of things kind of just happen. But you kind of got to put your best foot forward first and put yourself in the position to be a recipient of a mentor, somebody who kind of knows the ins and outs, that wants to help you along your journey.
Thank you. I know we have a few more questions, but I just wanted to chime in while you're already talking about this topic of just knowing what to look for. But you know, a lot of times when people think about South Jersey, they don't think that there's a lot of opportunity here. You know, we're not a desert for talent because we all know there's plenty of talent that resides here. However,
Yes.
we know there's not a lot of opportunity. So do you have any suggestions on how people can kind of find their way, how they can be in that right place at the right time? Do you suggest them leaving the area, or do you think that there's a way that they can do that here? Just a little guidance on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I'm from South Jersey. So me specifically, I had to go outside of South Jersey to really develop a name and certain key relationships. So, you know, Philly's 45 minutes away from Stockton. So I would go to Sigma Sounds and work with Dilemma, who was very gracious and even taking me and my boys on, honestly, because he was very busy. He works with some of the top tier talent coming out of Philly in the music industry as a whole. So kudos to him for actually giving me a chance. But yeah, you got to get out of South Jersey, to be honest with you, man. Like Philadelphia and New York are great starting points because those are like a lot of the bigger studios and a lot of the talent, when they are in the area, they come to work. So there's no real actual like recording studios in New Jersey, well, South Jersey per se, that are really like pivotal and like breaking people or having like top tier talent really come to, sad to say, which hopefully we can change that one day. And I look forward to trying to figure that out as well. But I would definitely say anybody in the tri-state area or South Jersey, definitely Philadelphia and New York are some great places to start. And some studios in Philly, definitely Larry Gold's, which is Milk Boy. It's one of the top studios in Philly, which a lot of talent managers and producers and artists are there all the time. And in New York, you got a whole ton. You got Jungle City Studios, you got Quad Studios. These studios are a little expensive, but it's like your career is an investment. It's an investment in yourself. So honestly, if you don't really have the finances, then you kind of got to get that in order, because it's all about priorities. So whether you got school and work, you got to take the time to go to your 4 classes a day, then maybe work your part-time job 3-4 days a week. But on those off days, instead of watching TV, instead of chilling with your boys or laid up with your boyfriend or girlfriend all the time, kind of separate some of that ample time. And you know what? I'm going to book a session in Philly today. Or I'll take a trip up to New York, to Times Square, and go to the studio and just do a session or do a song. Because that's literally the best way, where these engineers and these people actually get to hear you. And when it comes with that, like I said, your network is the most important tool there. So you get to network with people and be around individuals who actually work in the industry.
Any more questions, Christina?
Thank you. Yes. And I do just want to say something else from Sir Charles. Yeah, I agree with you. I think you do have to kind of venture out of our area. However, I do want to stress the importance of coming back. You know, once you've made it, coming back and sharing with the community that made you who you are, like you're doing today. So we definitely value your time and your expertise. So we have another question from Marissa Luca. What are your thoughts on being independent versus signing to a label?
Okay, so I know majority of artists out here now are independent. So taking an independent route is tough. I'm not going to hold you. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to give it to you straight up. So I indulged in that round for a while. So as an independent artist, you're kind of building everything yourself. So from your marketing to your press to your music, to your production. It's all about surrounding yourself with the right tools and people to help you obtain your sound and get your recording, everything out. And then as an independent artist, it's kind of like you got to build yourself up to get the attention from like a lot of these major labels and heavy hitters. But the difference in between both is when you have the backing of a label, because I'm managed by people at a label as well, or at Atlantic Records. So it's just like it's all about when it comes to a label, it's a budget. So they give you budgets and a certain terms in your contract with what you have to fulfill. And honestly, labels they really have a lot of control. So like from your masters to your copyrights to your publishing, which is a whole nother realm. But honestly, just like knowing your history and doing your research, because if you want to do a label deal, there's definitely a few loopholes you have to go through, because once you sign that contract, it's kind of like you're their property in a sense. So it's like they have control over when your album is going to be released, your studio time, if the events you're given is being allocated towards things like that, studio time, travel. So it's just like, it's definitely pros and cons, but if you have the right people around you and a great manager, nothing wrong with the independent route, but it's definitely a whole lot of more legwork you have to do besides working with a major label. And nothing wrong with a major label, but it's like I said, you get an advance, and it's like it's like a loan. You gotta pay their money back. So if a label does sign you, that means that they see potential in you to further yourself, and that they'll pretty much get those wheels turning for you. But I mean, an advance and everything is nice, but when you got to pay that money back, and then on top of that, and taxes and things like that, it's a whole lot. So I would definitely say for all my independent artists out there, definitely do your research. And if you would like to be signed with a major label, you got to kind of get in contact with those people, or make sure you're registered with either your ASCAP or your BMI, and submitting your music, going to events that they provide as well, because a lot of the tastemakers are there as well. But the independent route is definitely tough, but it's definitely well worth it if you surround yourself with the right people to execute your vision.
Thank you. We have the questions rolling in. So we have another one from Malika. What is your opinion on the thought there's value in rejection? What are some tips on how to handle rejection as an artist?
Woo, boy. So I'll tell you one thing, man. What's the saying? One man's trash is another man's treasure. So it's like you're going to get a lot of no's before you get that one yes in this industry, and I can contest to that. You know, starting out like around 2013, 2014, when I really didn't know the ins and outs, and I just wanted to make music, and honestly, rejection is kind of like your best sense of motivation, because obviously if this person doesn't like it, or whatever the case may be, it's just like you got to just keep going at it, keep getting better. Not everybody saw the vision for anyone when they first started out, and that's the kind of thing that we all have in common. Like everybody starts with their own dream and visualization of where you see yourself. So when it comes to rejection, I would just say take heed of it, in a sense where maybe you're not going to be where you want to be, or maybe the perception you see yourself is not what is actually the reality of the situation. So take it and just better yourself, improve. You know, if you submit songs to an A&R and they say maybe this isn't it, it's like, maybe, okay, well, what was it that didn't catch their eye? Was it my hook's not strong? Was my song not mixed properly? Was the production not there? You know what I mean? So it's like, just know in this industry, you're going to get 100 no's before you get that one yes. So it's all about just keeping your head down, staying resilient, staying diligent, and not giving up on yourself. Because some of the biggest artists in the world at first were looked over or told no, and then they took that fuel and used that motivation to get better and kept believing in themselves, and eventually they found that right person or team that took them on and gave them that yes and gave them that opportunity. So definitely don't get discouraged, because like I said, you got to put in 10,000 hours of work to be considered a professional in anything you're doing, regardless of music, corporate world, school, etc. So it's just like, don't get discouraged, put your best foot forward, because just because somebody over here says no, the other person on the other side might see you and say yes and want to give you an opportunity. So use rejection as a tool to get better, but also you got to be realistic with yourself. And I know everybody thinks they're the hottest rapper or hottest singer around their friends and family, but this is a business. It's very competitive. And as an artist, to these labels and to these executives, you're an investment. So if they're dumping X amount of money into you, they got to know that they'll be able to get that money back, and that whatever product that you're providing as an entertainer, that they can monetize that and push it to the next level. So you got to remember that, you know, music is an art, it's a form of expression, but it's also a business. So I feel like if you keep that mentality first and foremost, then I feel like you'll be fine. But you can't get emotional about it, because honestly, a lot of these execs and A&Rs, they funnel through so much talent and emails and songs a day. So they might be having a bad day that one day and be like, you know what, I don't like this. But then somebody else might hear it and be like, oh, this is great. Who is this person? Let's contact them. So definitely don't get discouraged, but just keep in mind that this is a business and you always got to put your best foot forward.
And I'm reminded of something that Eddie said. Shout out to Eddie. I'm not sure if Eddie had a chance to join us, but you know, sometimes it's not necessarily about your talent or your skill. It's about if that A&R or manager feels they can work with you. You know, you may have a great sound or a great project, but they may not feel like they know how to market or manage it. And you're always going to hear managers and A&Rs talk about this artist got away or they couldn't see the vision. It happens. Like they're only human. But at the end of the day, if you believe in yourself, like Charles said, you know, it'll come. You do it independent. You don't look at it like, oh, why doesn't this label want to sign me? Like, that's their loss. And you have to have that confidence to know that, hey, they're missing out. The right situation will come to me, or I'll go build the right situation myself.
And also to touch upon that as well, like this industry is very small. So like a lot of people that I seen back 4 or 5 years ago when I was trying to get established or just meeting people or being in LA in these big studios, they kind of like overlooked me in a sense. Oh, you're here with such and such who's a big producer. Okay, you're just his boy, whatever. They really don't pay too much attention to you. But just know that the tables always turn, and you will end up seeing these people once you get to where you want to be, or once you get on track with things. So don't get discouraged, because the same people that look over you will be the same ones beating on your door trying to get you to write a song or whatever the case may be. So just keep at it.
Thank you. We have about 2 more questions. I wanted to save some time for the end. I know you all have some more to the program this evening. So where did the question go? We have a question from Eugene. Everyone can't be a performer. Explain the value of understanding the business, such as managing and accounting.
Keenan, you want to take that?
I thought you wanted to take that, especially recently. Yeah. So the big thing is everyone can't be an artist. And I think we're hoping with events like this and future events that people can understand that there's a plethora of great careers in the music industry. There's a lot of very, very talented artists like Charles and many others that are on this call, and producers that just need help and support. So there's any number of ways that you can help. And especially if you're approaching from a diversity and inclusion perspective, you can do just about leverage anything. A lot of things that actually Eugene and I are working on right now are just trying to leverage music and art to help the community, to help the workplace. But there's a plethora of great jobs in the music industry. And it's sometimes it's about finding what you like. If you like to make songs, or you like to make music, or if you like to dance, or even work on stage production, there's any number of great jobs that can really be lucrative and successful. They may not always be available in South Jersey, but I'm hoping that we can change that. But there's just an absurd amount of really, really cool jobs. And then obviously I'm a little bit of a tech guy, a lot of a tech guy. So on the tech side, there's technology is becoming more embedded in music more and more on a daily basis. So there's an unlimited number of opportunities. For instance, my roommate from college, musician, went to go work at, not Spotify, went to work at Pandora, and essentially helping them with their playlist, with their AI. And now he works at Nike doing something similar with their selections, with what you see is processed to you and shown on your page. But I think what I'm hoping is that we'll be able to show some of those other jobs. But if you're not interested in necessarily making music, because I never was interested in making music. I enjoyed music. I like helping people like Charles. And so to me, that was always the fun part of it. But with how the industry is changing and diversity and inclusion, there's an absurd amount of jobs available in the music industry that don't just mean making music. And behind the scenes, those jobs have a lot of longevity, as does songwriting. You don't necessarily have to fit a specific mold as a songwriter with some of those other career paths, which is also the other thing that's really, really cool about it as well.
And also, just to touch upon that too, internships, honestly. I'm blessed at a point in my career where I'm getting booked to work in some of like the biggest studios in the world. So it's kind of, I see that like they're always looking for interns. They're looking for interns, people to run the studio. Not everything will be paid, but in the industry, it's kind of like you kind of got to pay your dues before you get that that big payout. So I would say like just doing your research, man, honestly, because studios are always looking for interns, for engineers, and obviously being an intern, even at a label as well. Like labels are always looking for interns. So just like jumping on those opportunities and taking advantage of them, because like the hardest thing in the music industry is getting into the room. So it's like once you get into that room, the possibilities are endless, because if you're in that room, you're there for a reason. So who's to tell you, no, you can't be here if you're already there? So it's all about taking it upon yourself and being diligent and doing your research on looking up a Universal or a Columbia, any job openings, any internships. I know guys are always on Instagram posting, hey, looking for studio interns, DM me your resume and things like that. So honestly, from my journey, that's like one of the easiest ways to really get your foot in the door, just to be in that environment. And then where you take it from there is completely up to the individual. But I would say that's definitely one of the cheat codes I would say in getting in with the big studios or with the labels is interning. Because if you do a great job, you'll get referred to somebody for an actual job, if not at that label, at another label, or whatever the case may be. So that's definitely one of the cheat codes I can share with you guys.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
P Super has a question. I want to jump in real quick and make sure I shout out two big instrumental parts of our team, especially early on, and in terms of the different jobs that are available. Graphic designer. We had a great graphic designer that we kind of fell into our lap very early on. Mike Lewinsky, who went on to become the graphic designer at art director at Mass Appeal, and then went on to he was from Staten Island, and actually we worked on some projects, a project with for Ghostface and Raekwon, and then he later, actually being from Staten Island, coincidentally worked on the artwork for the Wu-Tang documentary. And then of course, she just commented, my partner who's been helping me develop these projects for a while, publicist Brandy Clements, short for Bean, done a great job of helping me figure out what these projects looks like, producing, working in PR, working in marketing, and then also our photographer who's been helping, immensely along the way, helping me also figure out the pathway into diversity and inclusion and how kind of the intersection between art and music. Reggie Barat, who's also, I think, still might have been here. But I think P Super had a question that might have been waiting for a while. So we'll see if we can get to him before we talk about some of the songs that Charles, the big song with Daniel Caesar and Brandy, and then obviously they song with Diana, and then the big first single for Brandy.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm so sorry I skipped over your P Super. We're going to go ahead and ask this question, and then we want to go ahead and jump into the rest. I just want to make sure you all have enough space to leave us with some action steps. So P Super is asking, what is a good way to get into the music video world and get artists to reach out for work?
So I would say with that, you kind of got to crawl before you walk. So like any local artists or people that are dabbling in the music, just reach out to them and, hey, like, yo, let me shoot some content for you. Like, I know it's kind of like an investment in yourself, and you might not get $1,000 a video at first, but just start out $250, $500, and just start shooting little small videos. Like if there are any like concerts or anything going around, like just things like that. Just starting out there so you can actually develop your content. And then once you have that content, you'll be able to display that. And then they'll actually come looking for you, honestly, because artists and labels are always looking for dope videographers on the come up, they can kind of help groom. So it's all about just finding, like I said, an artist or somebody locally around your way that you might be able to help them out with visual treatments and things like that. So, because at the end of the day, that's part of your work as well, despite them just having a song you put in a video too. So I would say definitely, and obviously I don't know where you are right now, bro, but like I'm in Atlanta currently, and man, it's so much opportunity down here. Like Atlanta, LA, New York, like those are like Philly as well, but those are like the places where like you kind of got to be in the mix. Because obviously if you're from South Jersey, getting out of South Jersey and working with like different artists and talent in these different cities, it kind of just expands your network. And it gets these people who might not know you, but it's like you're getting exposed to whoever's fan base you're working with, whether they're from Texas, Florida, whatever the case may be. And then people see whatever your tag is or like your brand on those videos, and they say, oh man, he really shot that good. Let me reach out to him. And that's really how it goes. Because people might not like the song, but if they see the editing and the clarity in the video is A1, they'll definitely reach out 100%.
So you want to talk about the first song, or you want to talk about Love Again? Well, first, I know we talked about it a little bit, but I mean that was the big one, the got you the Grammy nomination. Not too long, but you know, we talked about when you first heard it on the radio. Take us through the process of all the hard work, and then finally able to hear, you know, a song that you helped write on the radio.
Man, so I was in LA at the time, and we were working out of Paramount recording studio in LA. It was one of the top studios in LA. And Eddie Blackman was actually one of the individuals that helped set up the session. So I was working with the producer, DJ Camper at the time, and we ended up going to the studio. Daniel was there. You know, we were just vibing out, just taking each other in and just talking about life and things of that nature. And then they had a beat loaded up, so some ideas started brewing about. And shout out to Cadence as well, who's another phenomenal writer who was a part of this process with me as well too. So shout out to Cadence. And yeah, so we were in the studio, and then Brandy ended up showing up a little later, and then we just sat down, and the vibe in the room was great. It was very vibrant, and then we just came up with the song. But we recorded the song in 2018, spring 2018. So, and then it popped off earlier last year or this year, and then hearing it on the radio for the first time was just like, wow. I mean, the fact that it was nominated for a Grammy kind of just like blew me away. I was actually on a flight headed to Toronto doing a writing camp for Atlantic Records out there. And my phone was blowing up as I'm about to take off, and I saw the post for best R&B performance for Love Again. We were amongst that category, and special day, man. Like I cried a little bit, like, wow, like coming from where I come from and just like taking the train to Philly or a Greyhound bus up to New York just to record, and coming back 4 or 5 in the morning, my mom looking at me crazy, like, what are you doing? Like, go get a job, go work somewhere.
Turning my house into a studio?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that as well. So it was like just going through everything I've been through, and like getting this outcome just lets me know that nothing was in vain or didn't happen for no reason. But it was definitely a lot of bumps and bruises, man. Because even at the time when I was in LA, I wasn't like signed or anything. I just happened to have a good friend of mine who's an established music producer that just let me kind of just rock out with him and just build and just. But like I said earlier, like once you get in those rooms, it's really on you to make an impact, to put have some type of influence on the room, so people are receptive to your ideas and things like that. So yeah, that's pretty much how that went.
You had told me once a little bit about the process. Can you talk about that a little bit more in terms of how that song came about, and kind of recommendations you might give, you know, other artists or young artists being in rooms like those, how to approach, you know, obviously Brandy and Daniel Caesar, but also, you know, what you might have recommended to the younger version of yourself. I think that's a really good way to think about it.
I mean, well, for that particular session, obviously I was called there for a reason, honestly. So I was there, and I knew what it is I kind of had to do to stick out and just, I mean, honestly, it's just being a people person first. Like, yo, man, what's going on? I'm Sir Charles. I mean, Daniel's a very cool kid, man. Very open. I mean, very honest. I mean, his energy speaks for itself. So it's all about when you get in that room and analyzing that room and knowing kind of what you can do, what you can't do, pushing your limits. But just being a people person, first and foremost, man, we're all humans. And even as creatives, we tend to be in our heads a lot. But honestly, just be yourself. Just be yourself, be open, and kind of not, and like, just don't be too overbearing, because at the end of the day, the talent, the artists, they're there to get a job done. And so the main objective is to have some type of influence so you can be involved with the record. So I just kind of took it from that approach. But what I would tell my younger self is that, man, well, my younger self never really imagined I would be in a predicament like that, honestly, until recently when things started to unfold. But I would tell my younger self, just be persistent. And honestly, just like you gotta claim your fame in a sense. Like, if you're a dope producer, yo, listen, I produce, check this out right quick. Maybe this be dope on a song. Or if you're a writer, give them a couple of bars or give them some melodies. And if they like it, they're like, oh yeah, cool, let's try that. And then bang, you get a credit on the song.
So after that, you worked on the Ayana song with featuring Wiz Khalifa. I know that was one artist that you had talked about that worked with Prince Charles, kind of a very talented up and coming artist. Was the process a little bit different working with her versus working with some of the other artists that you've worked with, like a Brandy, like a Daniel Caesar?
Yeah, so that process was definitely different. So with Brandy and Daniel, I was actually in the studio with them while we created those moments. And especially with Brandy, I was rolling with them for a nice little minute. So pretty much I was in the room with them. So like while the vibes are being curated, I was able to be a part of that. So it was a little different than doing the Ayannis record with Wiz Khalifa. Prince Charles and I, if you guys don't know what Prince Charles is, he's a very established singer, songwriter in this industry. Worked with, he wrote Needed Me for Rihanna. He's worked with Usher, Mary J. Blige, like the list just goes on and on. So me and him actually wrote the song together with a producer, Jay White. And Jay White, shout out Jay White, very established, talented producer. He did all the Cardi B stuff, the Bodak Yellow, the Money, Like It Like That. And we kind of just linked up and gave him an idea for the sample to flip. And he flipped the sample. And then we just got to it and just curated an idea we thought would be dope. And then Ayana just tended to fit that mold. So we played her the song once we recorded it. And she loved it. And then they knocked it out. And then originally Little Baby was supposed to be on the feature. And they had a couple other dudes in mind too. But then, Wiz, who's part of the Atlantic staple, and Giannis is signed to Atlantic Records and Island Prolific. Wiz loved the record and hopped on it. And then, bang, we had a single on our hands.
So I think there's a good question that came through, working with up-and-coming artists versus established artists. I think someone asked, from a legal perspective, what might you recommend for especially up-and-coming songwriters, artists, and producers?
Okay, so first and foremost, make sure you're registered with either an ASCAP or a BMI. That's first and foremost. So pretty much with ASCAP and BMI, whatever one you choose to join, I'm a BMI affiliate, so I'll join BMI. But that's just first and foremost. So when you're working on these songs or whatever the case may be, you can have your music actually registered in the data system. So a song is placed on radio. They kind of like collect your money for you, and you get your royalty payouts for however much the song makes. So ASCAP or BMI, that's first and foremost. And obtaining a good attorney, because what people don't understand is that besides like a manager, attorneys are like managers behind the scenes. They're the ones closing deals. They're the ones with the relationships. So if you have a great attorney, and if you're registered with either your ASCAP or BMI, then you should pretty much be good to go. And also, I would say having a manager is very, very important too. So my management team, they're very established and very diligent, and they get a lot of things done. So I'm grateful for them. But ASCAP BMI, a good attorney, and a solid management team that really believes in your vision, that can help you mold what you want to do and make it bigger than what it is currently.
You wanna take us through take us through a little bit of the process behind obviously the big single, and then talk about some action items and things that, you know, I think takeaways for some of the kids and students as far as artists, songwriting, etc.
Yeah. So the single "Borderline" by Brandy on the album B7, that's out now. Please continue to stream that. But yeah. So we were at I believe, was it Westlake? We were at Westlake Studio in LA, in California, and that's like Michael Jackson's like studio. That's like the famous studio where Michael Jackson recorded Thriller. So we were working on the record. And then, you know, it was a vibe that Camper, was DJ Camper producer, who's a South Jersey native as well. And it's just, musically, he's just literally just a genius. I mean, to keep it short and sweet. So, you know, he started playing those keys, man, and it just moved everybody in the room. And then we kind of just started vibing out, and then curated a vibe. And then I just fed off Brandy's energy and then seeing where she wanted to take it. And I just helped her put some words together, and then Cadence came through with some dope melodies, and then we just started putting them together. And then by the grace of God, it ended up being the lead single on the record. And we recorded it in 2018, by the way. And I know during that time, you know, it was different management coming into play with the artists and everything like that. So I didn't know what records were sticking, what was going on. But after we did the records and after we got done working, I didn't hear anything for almost a year. And then once the album was getting ready to release, I was hit up by Brandy and her team to get splits and everything situated. But then I learned that Borderline was going to be the main single, like the week of, or a couple of days of. So I'm like, oh, wow. So that was just a big surprise. But the thing about this industry is that you never know when that next song is going to go. So that's why I'll always say, treat each song like it's your last, because it might be a song you did with somebody from 3 years ago that just happens to get picked up with somebody or placed on the album. I mean, a couple of years later that you totally probably forgot about or didn't know what was going on. So that's the story with Borderline.
So I'm going to jump in here, Keenan, because I know we have about 15 minutes left. What are some action steps that we can take with us, aspiring artists already who are trying to get into the industry, or just make their name known a little more wide within their community? What are some action steps that we can take regarding that, or specifically songwriting? If we want to get into songwriting, what can we do to work on that skill if that's not a talent that we have naturally?
So honestly, for me, it's kind of just like I've always had a passion for writing. Like even in school, I was always very gifted in English. So it was just like writing papers and things like that, and knowing how to pronunciate words and things of that nature. But honestly, it's an everyday thing. It's like even where you might be waiting at the bus stop, or you might be in the shower or in the doctor's office, or just in your car, just kind of like curating like different ideas in your head and just like bringing them to light. So it's kind of like it's never ending. It's never ending train. Because as creatives, our minds never shut off, like ever. Like my mind goes a mile a minute, 24 hours a day. So it's all about just staying consistent, honestly. Songwriting isn't a thing that you can just do, I mean, just when you're in the mood to, and just think that you're going to just pop off, or that your song is going to be better than anybody else's. Because honestly, it's millions of artists and songwriters out there. So you really got to be honest with yourself and put your best foot forward. I know I've been saying that a lot, but it's really true. Put your best foot forward, and really make sure that that you're putting together content that you believe in, that's believable, and that can resonate with people. And also, like I said, if anybody in the local area, especially South Jersey, tap into the local shows. Go to Stockton, hand out your mixtape or your music on a thumb drive. Do certain things that you can be interactive with people to be receptive to you. Because the one thing is, I know everybody hates that one guy, oh, mixtape $5 type thing. That's kind of like dead now. But kind of just like you gotta do something to draw people into you. Because you can be the most talented person in the world, but if you don't have a way to interact with people to know that you're that most talented person in the world, and it's kind of like you're on a treadmill. in a sense. So especially for college kids and high school kids, I mean, your friends and the people you're around is your best asset. So it's like having them spread the word, tapping into like who like they know. And but at the end of the day, you got to make sure that whatever you're writing or you're composing, it has to actually be good. So you got to be honest with yourself. And I feel like it's important to have somebody in your corner who's not just like a yes man or your cousin or a friend that's going to think if you burped on a microphone, yo, that's hot, bro. Like, yeah, let's record it. It's just like, you got to really keep honest people in your corner, because once you do transcend from being an independent artist or starting on your bedroom into the industry, you got to realize that it's a business and emotions can't really dictate how you move, because it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you got to just have honest people around you, but continue to perfect your craft, because it took me years, like literally years, to get to where I'm at right now. And I still feel like I have a long way to go. So you can't be complacent. You can't be content, because no matter how hard you think you're working, there's somebody else that's working 10 times harder than you, or might have less than you, and is putting forth more effort. Like I said earlier, it's all about your priorities. And if you really want to pursue a career in music, man, you got to take a couple $100 out your check and book time in the studio, because it's the difference between a rapper or somebody who sings and a recording artist. People actually take time to get their levels right, knowing their template on Pro Tools, knowing what speed your auto-tune needs to be on, the key of the song, things like that. So you really have to study music. I know Stockton, shout out to Beverly Vaughn, when I was there, she was somebody I could talk to about music and just being some of her classes and the seminars explaining that. So shout out to Miss Bev Vaughn. But yeah, it's all about just surrounding yourself with like in the right environment, because hanging out with your friends, playing video games all day or going out to the club and all that type of stuff, I mean, that's cool and all, but what is that really going to get you? I mean, I spent a lot of nights where I sacrificed not going out with the friends or not having a girlfriend or partying to freaking sit in my room or sit in my car for 5-6 hours and write a song. So when I had that song done, if I was in the studio or in a situation where I could present myself for a couple of lyrics or a hook or a melody or a bar, I already had like 150 songs in my notepad where ideas every day. I would just think of something and would just write it down and practice it and just rehearse it in my head. So it's all about discipline. I mean, if you're disciplined, you can accomplish anything in life. But it's people who talk about it, and it's people who really like want to get things done in life. And I literally had to eat, sleep, breathe this music stuff for a while to even get some type of leverage to be able to get in certain rooms or get placements on records, man. So it's all about who you surround yourself with and what you're constantly putting your energy into every day. And if that's music, then I feel like you'll be fine. But definitely learn the business. Do your research on the ASCAP, BMI, see what is the best suit for you. And there's a whole bunch of opportunities on there as well that can help get your foot in the door. So it's all about doing your research and being diligent and putting your priorities first if this is what you really want to pursue.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, like it's a process. It's 10,000 hours. So Charles always thinks he can get better, but that process didn't happen overnight. Like you have to hone your craft, research, get better, but at the same time, you also have to jump out and leap the faith and have confidence in yourself. And then, as Charles said, have a complete package. If you can't do everything, at least like find a graphic designer, find a photographer. It's a little hard during a pandemic. You can get creative, but build with people that you know, like-minded individuals that are going to motivate you and hold you accountable. And slowly but surely, you'll build momentum, and you'll find people want to work for you. As Charles said, and I fully believe, when you're ready, the right people will find you, the right manager, the right mentor, so on and so forth. But you have to approach the situation like that and be willing to learn, be willing to listen, and be willing to get better. And then it just, eventually you get to that point.
And one more thing, like, you got to get out the house. I know with Instagram and everything, it's like you can just scroll and DM somebody, but it's a big difference between you emailing somebody than you meeting somebody in person and receiving their energy and looking them in the eyes and telling them what it is you want to do, what you're passionate about. It really, really, really makes a difference. Because people get spammed hundreds of emails a day. So what's going to make your one email special? You feel me, at the end of the day? So it's all about just putting yourself out there and putting yourselves in situations where you can receive certain blessings. Because honestly, all it takes is one song and your life can literally change. So it's all about just knowing how to maneuver and making sure that the content that you are working on is to the best of its ability. Because you can have a song that's sitting in your email for years or weeks or whatever time, and the right person hears it, and the next thing you know, you got a publishing deal or you're getting signed for a management contract or whatever the case may be. So yeah, that's all I say about that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you gave us some very vital steps. If I were to take away anything, and these are steps that can definitely go across the board in all artistry. Networking sounds like that was one of the key things you talked about.
Yeah.
Investing in yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Which
That's one of the biggest things.
prioritize.
Yes, investing in yourself is one of the
Right.
biggest things because it's not cheap. And if you're independent, that means nobody's putting up a budget for you. So I don't care if you're working
Right.
at PetSmart, the mall, McDonald's, every check you get, listen, put a little, I'm gonna put $50, $100 to the side, and by the end of the month or by next month, I'll have $300, $400 to go record an 8-hour session in the studio. Those are the things that get you where you want to be, because that discipline there alone set yourself aside because you have your priorities together. So that's very important. Investing in yourself is key until you get somebody else that wants to invest in you, but you got to put in that work. That's it.
Right. Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Priority.
And also in this day and age of diversity and inclusion and being in a pandemic, look at, you know, how you can invest in yourself. Look at who you can align with in terms of partnerships and sponsorships. Look at companies and people that you like and would like to align with, and look for employment at those places. And then, hey, you know, like through diversity and inclusion or other programs, you could be looking at them as somebody that's going to help you advance your career, either directly or indirectly. But you're learning about your craft, you're learning about the industry, and you may find that, oh, okay, maybe I like making music, but I also like these other parts of the business. I think sometimes, you know, in terms of music, like it's small, but there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of jobs. But if you're looking at just that artist, like even what we're saying is like, look at songwriting. You know, you don't necessarily have to fit a mold. You have a lot of opportunities as a songwriter, as opposed to just being an artist. But it's just all about just investing in yourself, prioritizing, and understanding what opportunities you have in front of you.
Right, and that sounds like it comes with doing your research. I know with this generation, it seems like people are just waiting for things to fall in their lap.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to get out there and do your own research and make those connections, and be disciplined, like I know Sir Charles talked about a little earlier. So I think we have some great action steps. Before we close out, and I also see that Nate had a question, so hopefully we can get to that before we end. I know we talked about us being in the business of stories. We have Stories of AC. So can you just relate storytelling, songwriting, and if I was someone who had no background, no experience of songwriting, just a few steps that I can take to do that?
Well, honestly, like, so in this day, especially in this day and age and the climate music is in, people love to hear a story because there's so many people that live vicariously through music. So for example, like let's take a Biggie or a Tupac or like a Drake or a Kendrick, especially a Kendrick Lamar or J. Cole. They tell stories from how they grew up, what they've been around, and they just make it transparent as possible. So it's like, even if you're having a bad day at work, the battery in your car dies, something like that, like try to incorporate that in a song, because everybody has a bad day. Everybody's been in love. Everybody's been disappointed. So just like it's certain key things that you can take that, you know, everybody has experienced at a point in time in the universe, and you got to just bring it to life, regardless if you're talking about yourself or, you know, you got a brother or cousin who got cut from a team or whatever. Just try to incorporate everyday things and experiences into the music, because it's all about relatability. And also, to expound on that too, it's all about developing a sound as well too. So I would say, like, definitely put in some time if you can invest in getting like Pro Tools or FL Studio on your laptop. And if you are an aspiring producer, develop a sound that's really not prevalent right now, because we're always looking for the next best thing in this industry. And the one thing you don't want to do is put yourself in a box and sound like 1,000 other people. So the one thing that a lot of artists and labels are picking up on is that new sound, like that different type of cadence, that different type of swagger on a record where it's not just all about money, girls, and fancy cars. But just talk about life, because that's the most relatable music, and that's the music that will get streamed and get synced in movies because it's universal, and the whole world can listen to it, and it can make every individual feel some type of way. But the reason why it does that is because every individual experience that type of emotion that you want to portray in a song.
Thank you so much for dropping all these gems. I do want to get to Nate's question before we head out. But before we get to his question, Keenan and Sir Charles, is there anything else that you wanted to give us, some tools to take with us before we
Yeah, so I would say, I know I've said this a few times, but please make sure you're registered with either an ASCAP or a BMI. And so even when I was starting my journey, I had a relationship with somebody over at the ASCAP office, even though I wasn't signed with them, well, not signed with them, even though I wasn't registered with them, I still had some relationships, and I was able to go through certain events. I know ASCAP does a thing called a Break Bread event. They do every month, and they invite they invite certain creatives. You join a mailing list, and you get to come and you get to submit your music or play your songs with some of the biggest execs and producers in the game. They put you in a boardroom, and you get to do that. And I've done a lot of that as well too. And that really helped along with my networking. So it's like things like that. But ASCAP and BMI are extremely important. You cannot consider yourself an artist, a producer, if you're not registered with an ASCAP or a BMI, because that is how you get to submit your music. That is how, if any songs gain any traction from a financial aspect, that's how you get paid through your mechanical royalties. So ASCAP and BMI are the two vital things you need to get started in this industry, besides having a manager and things like that. But that comes. But ASCAP and BMI is the one thing. It's like $50 to register for either or. But that's the one thing that you necessarily have to do, because the first thing you're going to do, if you're in the studio and you are involved in a record and they ask, okay, you would ASCAP or BMI, can I get your ASCAP number or your BMI registration number? It's the first thing I'm going to ask you. So if it's like, oh, I'm not registered with both, they're going to look at you like you're crazy, because one step of being a professional in this industry is making sure you're registered with either or. And that's the most simplest thing you can do. It takes you 10 minutes, if that. So, yeah.
Thank you.
And going back to the storytelling piece, storytelling is important in terms of making relatable music, but also just of telling your story and marketing yourself. Nate had asked, as transitioning from a dancer to becoming a producer, but it's all the same. It's just about telling your story. That's what sets you apart. In this social media age, you have to have something that's distinct. One thing that we kind of started doing, not really because we knew, but going through and doing interviews, going to radio stations, kind of still somewhat of a model that's used, and you have blogs, but telling more of Charles's story through short film, through documentary, controlling that narrative. And you do the same thing in terms of storytelling with music, but also you can do it in terms of marketing yourself. And that's what people are going to gravitate towards. It's relatable, especially depending on where you're from and what you've been through. And then it's about using that storytelling mechanism along with your music or whatever your art is, especially production. Like I've worked with a good amount of producers, creating your own projects. Like I always tell people, you want to have something that's your own. You're going to work with this artist and work with that artist, but you want to have something that's yours, because it's always, working with artists and songwriters, like Charles said, like some of those songs didn't come out till 2 years later. One good question I was going to ask him about his solo career, which I'm not sure we have time to get to right now, but you want to always have something that's your own. And as a producer, that's especially important, especially as a songwriter too. But that way you can kind of control the narrative. People are coming to you for your services as opposed to you having to go track down artists, songwriters, so on and so forth. Put out a production project, put out a B tape, do an EP, collaborative EP, have an artist on there, have the instrumentals on there. But along with that is your story, is who you are, and this wonderful storytelling piece that I think is all encompassing in all aspects of music, storytelling, so on and so forth. I think that's how you really sell yourself and set yourself apart.
Thank you so much for all these gems, guys. We really do appreciate it. I heard you kind of answered Nate's question somewhat, Keenan. And I don't see any other questions. I hope I'm not skipping anybody. But I just want to thank you again, Sir Charles and Keenan, for giving us your time this evening, as well as all of our participants and our community organizations, our fellow high schools that joined. You guys were awesome. Hopefully you learned something tonight. I learned a lot myself. Do we have anything else that needs to be said before we say ashe and part ways here tonight? Any more?
I definitely want to say one more thing.
You gonna say it?
Yeah, I want to say one more thing. Just everybody out there with a dream or aspirations, just don't give up, man. Because honestly, I've been through hell and back for all this, man. Dealing with a sick mother with lupus and trying to just find myself as an individual and trying to just juggle my happiness and just friends and things like that. It's kind of just like you can't give up, and you got to have that tunnel vision, man. Because a lot of people don't know what's going on inside your head or what internal struggles you really go through. And like, even when I was at Stockton, I mean, we was recording in the dorm room on $100 mic and things like that. I mean, out of class and things like that. So it's just like, just put your best foot forward, like keep the faith, and like resilience is number one, because people are going to doubt you. They're going to laugh about you. They're going to talk about you, etc., things like that. But as long as it's in your heart to do what you want to do, you can get it done. And I was a broke college kid working like a little job and saving up $100 to go to the studio and not buying Jordans and all that stuff, even though I used to do that all the time. But just prioritize and really lock in, because I'm from South Jersey, and it's like, if I can do it, I know anybody can do it. So if anybody has any other questions or wants to reach out, my Instagram is SirCharles1. You guys can DM me on there, follow me, whatever the case may be, and then we can I can share some light with you guys. But yeah, man, just put your best foot forward, believe in yourself, man, because there's no other greater gratitude than knowing that you got to where you wanted to be because you got to control your own narrative. It's not easy. You got to take steps. It's going to be bumps and bruises. Got to go broke, all that stuff. People aren't going to believe when you look at you sideways, but at the end of the day, you will come out victorious if you keep God first, you keep the faith, and you stay diligent. And I just had to say that. And also, everybody out there, please go vote. We're in some trying times right now, and the future of our nation is in our hands. So if you can take the time to scroll on Instagram and do X, Y, and Z, please go vote, because this upcoming election is going to decide a lot for us in the future. So as creatives, as entrepreneurs, as people looking to progress in life, please just stay true to yourself, keep God first, and just make sure you keep the right people around you, keep your energy right, and things will fall into place. But yes, please go vote, guys. Thank you.
Vote is so important. And thank you, Sir Charles, for, the work that you do. I'm sure a lot of us have this in common. If anything has been our saving grace, I'm sure many of us have turned to music in this crazy year to kind of settle our nerves a bit and bring some peace. So thank you for the work that you do and for inspiring other young artists to do the same, share their gifts to definitely make a change in this world. Once again, vote. Did we say vote already? Yeah, go vote.
Yeah.
If you're of age.
Vote, please.
Vote. The arts is very important. The arts is very important, and programs like this and that Stockton are doing, like Atlantic City Arts Foundation, the Boys and Girls Club of Atlantic City, they're immensely important. And without voting, there's no way to properly ensure that those things exist. So that these opportunities are available to young entrepreneurs, young students, and even just kids in general. So votes.
Yes, and also I would like to say too, before we close out, we will be donating the proceeds from this seminar to the Boys and Girls Club in Atlantic City as well. So shout out to them, and it starts at home. I mean, so you got to empower your community. So I feel like this is one of the many ways that we'll be getting involved in the community. But yes, all proceeds today will be being donated to the Boys and Girls Club of Atlantic City, New Jersey.
Thank you so much for that. I do want to, one more plug. We have one more event coming up with the House of Expression. It's going to be storytelling through spoken word. We have an awesome artist, local artist coming to join us. This is going to be on November 12th, I believe, which is a Thursday from 7 to 9. The first half of the event will be a workshop. We will be giving you tools on how to write your own spoken word and where to draw that inspiration from. The second half of the event will actually be a virtual open mic night. So whether you were on the workshop and you created a piece there that you wanted to share, or you just want to come in for the performance piece of it, share your piece with the crowd, that's great too. I'll send some email pushes. I know most of you get them either from Stories of AC or from the COM program and a few of our community partners, so that push will be going out soon. But please come out. It's going to be an awesome night. And I think we are good to go. Once again, thank you so much. Thank you to our wonderful artists and our hosts. And hopefully we'll see you on November 12th.
Thank you guys so much. It was a pleasure.
We're so grateful. Thank you. Bye. Everyone.
No problem. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Have a nice day.
Good show, guys.
We good?
I believe so. Keenan. Oh, okay, we're good.
All right. All right.
Have a good one.
Yeah.